Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to Farhad Abbasov, who's the CEO of Millennial Lithium, TSXV listed lithium developer with assets in Argentina. Quite a significantly advanced project. If you want to hear our thoughts on the conversation today, where they're at and the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club, where you can also find detailed company reports. You can get market commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. There are training videos on there. There are summaries of other interviews that we've done just to save you a bit of time. And of course, there's a thriving community of investors on there sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. And if you go there now, you can sign up at cruxinvestor.com/club. Of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we talked about, take a look at the description. Farhad, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Matt. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Where are you? Dubai?
I'm in Dubai today.
How's the weather?
I've been here for a long time now, as you know.
There's worse places. There's worse places.
I agree. No complaints. The weather is getting much better. So we can go out and enjoy the weather now.
See, I like that. So if you're in Dubai, what you mean is it's gone from 45, 50 down to a more clement 30. That's what you mean.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. It means they're going from super hot to English summer peak hot.
Yeah.
So that's something like that. Yeah. So
we wish.
Still okay. Yeah. That's right.
Hey, well, look, we saw a press release this week, and I want to talk to you about that. But again, why don't we do our usual thing? Kick off 1 minute overview of the business for people new to this story, and we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, sure, Matt. So, look, just to remind all our viewers, the ones who are not familiar with Millennial Lithium, Millennial has been developing a brine project in Salta province of Argentina. This is one of the most advanced projects, brine projects in the world now. We've gone through a feasibility study. We also received all the approvals for our environmental assessment studies. We also have fiscal stability certificate with the government of Argentina signed. So the project is at the stage where it's ready to go into pre-construction and then obviously into construction. We have sufficient cash to do all this work now going forward. We're going to be doing pilot operations. We'll talk about it momentarily, but we started a part of these pilot operations almost 18 months ago by building our evaporation ponds. They've been in operation, as I said, for months now. So we just launched our the pilot plant. We commissioned the pilot processing plant in Salta. So the project, I would say, at this stage, at this point, is one of the most advanced with one of the estimated lowest cost structures in the industry. And it is in a very good jurisdiction. For people who are not familiar with Salta province of Argentina, it's one of the best mining jurisdictions, not only in Argentina, but the entire region of South America.
Okay, we called you today to talk about the commissioning of the pilot plant, which you've announced, but it's kind of, so what? What should people be thinking about that? And I say that in the context of you've already announced that you're in the process of raising money for the processing plant itself. So that's, you're going after a lot of money out there in the marketplace. So why bother with this kind of interim stage at this point until you've got a bit more certainty on the capital?
Yeah, that's a good question, Matt. So I'll touch on the pilot plant first, and then we'll talk about financing, obviously, later on in more detail. So we've been planning to commission pilot plant for quite a while. The original date was in the second quarter of this year. Then COVID started, and we decided not to take any risks because of potential supply disruptions and so forth. As we talked about it, I think in one of our interviews before, the country has shut down. So we had a lot of issues in that regard, so a lot of uncertainties. The country is starting opening up, but again, the second wave hit. But despite that, we decided a few weeks back to actually go ahead with commissioning because we don't know for how long this COVID situation will continue. And unfortunately for us to keep it, in a conserved mode doesn't make any sense. We have already built the plant, we've already installed all the equipment, everything is ready to go. So that's why the decision was made, despite all these potential disruptions and ongoing lockdown or shutdown in Argentina, still proceed with this. Because one of the advantages we have in this project, Matt, is that our entire technical team is actually based in Salta. So we don't have any problem with flying in people or, changing shifts, et cetera. So that gives us quite a bit of a certainty, quite a bit of comfort in that regard. But Of course, we understand there could still be some issues with certain supplies. We've stocked up enough for now to go forward and without any issues, without any disruption for the next probably 3-4 months. But again, we kind of getting ready for potential issues in that regard. The reason we decided to actually start and commission this and actually take this further was twofold. One is actually produce battery grade material. So we've done this on a lab scale. We know that the whole process works, obviously, because the evaporation route is quite well known. It's been done in both Chile and Argentina for many years. But as most viewers probably know, some of them may not know, each brine chemistry is different. So you have to really calibrate your process to your brine chemistry. And our brine chemistry is different from what you have in Chile. It's different from other parts of Argentina. So again, as I said, we've done quite a bit of work that shows that this flow sheet that we've designed should work, but we want to prove that it works in a plant. So that is the purpose. So we've started this process, and by the end of the year, we should be able to produce battery grade material.
So can I just interrupt? Yeah. Sorry, two questions there before I forget. One is how much money are you allocating to this in terms of the build of the pilot plant, first of all?
Yeah, so this will not take up a lot of cash. So we're looking at about between now and the start of production of lithium carbonate battery grade, probably around $250,000 to $300,000. And then once we reach 3 ton a month rate, that will cost us about $50,000 to $60,000 a month. So we got about $13 million in the bank. So we will not be taking any significant hit because of this, Matt.
Okay, and the second question in relation to that is, you're going through a process of raising money for the processing plant. We're talking, big chunk of change there. How can they have certainty around financing you without you having put stuff through the pilot plant, i.e. produced your chemical flow sheet at scale? Because they need to know this thing's going to work at scale. Is that going to slow your negotiations down?
No, actually, this should help actually expedite it, because again, the groups that we're talking to, they're quite familiar with different processing routes in brine segment of lithium, and they understand that this, generally speaking, it works, but they want to see obviously how it works in our case. We've shown them how obviously they're quite familiar with our flow sheet and the design of the plant, etc. But I think the fact that we want to actually do it before we finish financing will really remove a lot of questions, and I think it will mitigate a lot of risks. We will never be able to, show that we can produce this on a much larger scale until we actually show that we can produce 3 tons a month on a steady basis for a few months. So that's the plan. Now, interestingly, the off-takers that we've been talking to, some of them haven't asked us for any samples, etc. They are happy to take our lithium carbonate, whether it will be battery grade or technical grade. But couple have asked for it, and I think it's very important for us to also to de-risk this aspect of our process, because that will also allow us to bring in significant debt capital to the project when we actually finalize our construction financing package. So that is the reason. And with the little money that we'll be spending, Matt, as I just said, we can actually hit a lot of points. We can cover a lot of questions. We can address a lot of issues that potentially might come up down the road. So that's the rationale behind the commission of this plan.
Okay, so it's not a lot of capital. It's not going to make a dent in your cash reserves. Can we talk about the actual financing that you're going through at the moment? Now, how many people are you in discussion with? At what stage are you? And what precisely are the negotiations? Because there's 100 ways you can come at this, right? And there are hundreds of ways that companies can come into the company. So what are you aiming for? And I guess also, what's the timing? So there's a lot of questions, but if you can help me understand what you're going through.
I think I can cover them. Matt, look, I mean, I think I mentioned last time we engaged Credit Suisse to become our lead financial advisor. So this is a team out of London and Toronto. So they've been helping us with all these programs, basically trying to put together a financing package as soon as possible so that we can get going with construction. So obviously there are two tracks. One is, I would call it the JV/strategic investment or strategic partnership, and then M&A. So I'll put M&A aside because it's obvious. we agree on decent premium and the deal happens to announce. But in terms of actually bringing in a strategic investor who would come in and help us finance this and build this project, we've had quite significant success with two large parties. They've advanced through their due diligence process, but they still completed due diligence process. We're at the stage where we're discussing terms. Obviously, there's no guarantee anything will happen, but we think that they're very serious. Obviously, we're quite serious. They've chosen our project specifically for three reasons. One, the cost structure, because it's a brine project. Two, is the jurisdiction. They feel quite comfortable with Salta province in Argentina. And the three is actually the advanced stage of this project. There are not too many projects in the world that are so advanced, whereas they're ready to go into construction now. So those are the whole bunch of other reasons. I mean, they like our technical team and so forth, but the infrastructure is very good. But those three, I would say, reasons are the overriding factors in their decision-making process. So right now we're discussing various structures. I'll just, throw a couple of ideas out there. I can't obviously talk about the specifics, but we're talking about either straightforward strategic investment where an investor comes in for a good chunk of the project, and then together we'll go and raise debt and the rest of equity and so forth. And another option here is for them to come in and just strike a JV where they will be earning into the project as they build the project. So in other words, they will reach certain points, as in a typical kind of a mining earning agreement, and whereas from there on they will carry us. So there are different ideas, different terms that are being discussed right now, but these are the, I would say the framework or the kind of packages, types of investments that we're discussing. Now, obviously, I would say a couple of these, potential investors come from the battery chain, from the battery industry itself, and they have different visions for this project. They have different approaches on the technical development. So, depending on who we go with, actually, the direction of the technical development of this project may change either slightly or quite dramatically. So one of these large players has its own technology, both not extraction but processing technology. The other one has a twist on our evaporation approach. So it really depends on what kind of financial terms they put on the table, how attractive they will be for us to actually go with one or the other. So it's a very, I would say, very important stage in our development, whereas we have to make, I would say, decisions that will basically determine the, further development of this project for the next couple of years.
So lots of questions there. So this isn't just about money, it's a potential technical partner too. You're suggesting there, because you're talking about twists on evaporation process. You're talking about them they're part of a battery chain. I don't know, did you say there are two or more?
They're more than two, but two, I would say, who have different...
are more advanced. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And more advanced.
Right. So if I think about that, so do they have balance sheets to be able to kind of step in and become part of what you're doing at Millennial, or are they going to have to go and raise money themselves?
Matt, they both have balance sheets to do the project. In other words, to actually fund the construction. But most importantly, I would say they also have technical expertise to actually take this further. In other words, they have technical expertise and technical experience in producing lithium. Maybe not directly one of them, but they still have access to that experience. And the difference, again, in technology, but both of them have experience actually producing at a significant scale using that particular technology. So that's very important, and because we don't want to be experimenting for too long with something new, unless obviously, if it's an M&A and they want to do something, that's a different story. But we're talking, if we're still involved, want to have a technology that has been tested already somewhere at a significant scale. And both of these groups have done that. So that's why we're looking at them, and it goes beyond financial, investment, because basically we're looking at not only building value today, in other words, not only just receiving significant investment today, but also looking at the value that we can build in the next 2 or 3 years. As to make it simpler for people to understand, I always give a an example of Ganfeng and Lithium Americas partnership structure. It's not going to be the same, obviously. We're discussing a little bit different framework, but within the same parameters. So very similar in terms of their involvement, and very similar in terms of their commitment to take the project through construction all the way to production. So that's the idea. We think that that's another way for us to build significant value in the next couple of years, in addition to getting significant investment today.
Okay, so this isn't just a case of taking money. This is, both sides need to evaluate each other in a way, because they need to evaluate your project and you need to evaluate what they're suggesting technically, and you need to believe that they can deliver that, because it's about future value. Because otherwise you just, it's potentially M&A and you just, do a deal now and you guys check out. But I think at this price, you're probably not, you and your shareholders probably wouldn't be too happy to do that. So how long is this process going to take? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, we're quite advanced now, Matt. So they're telling us by the end of the year, and I'm an eternal skeptic. So I think probably early next year. We're at the stage where a lot of details, a lot of nitty-gritty is being discussed. So I think realistically, probably January, where we can actually finalize this. And I think it's still pretty good for us, because you're absolutely right. The time works actually in our favor right now. We don't think this is the best time to strike an M&A deal, for example, today. Maybe in 2-3 months, maybe in a few months. Yes, the same thing goes for strategic investment, because we want to obviously optimize our kind of value both at this stage and down the road. And you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head by saying that we're evaluating them too. So we don't want to get involved with a party that has unproven technology. Whereas we'll be basically stuck for years to come, and then we won't know how to unravel the whole, partnership at that point. So that is a significant risk. We want to get involved with a party that has shown us that it works, and both of these parties have actually. But we also know that we can get to production faster. And there are also some technical, as I said, there are technical twists. We want to make sure that this will actually work in that particular environment. That certain things that they require will be available and so forth. So it's not just a pure, I would say, financial evaluation of their investment. It's also a technical evaluation, technical assessment of their capabilities.
It's interesting, actually, when you mentioned earlier, and I wouldn't mind getting a bit more information from you on it. You said that each brine has its own particular makeup, different levels of impurities, or different chemical construction. The partners that you're talking to need to engineer whatever it is that they're trying to do to this specific brine. So then what are they, I know you've talked about, okay, brine versus hard rock. If they've picked brine as their preferred option for, I'm trying to understand, what are the reasons why they picked brine over hard rock? Why Argentina over, I don't know, Australia, North America? I get that you're significantly advanced, and that suggests that they have a timeline that they're working to. Otherwise they could go to lots of juniors who, are less advanced than you guys. Can you give me a bit more color on what it is that they're looking for? Because you kind of done those broad headlines, and that's fine. But can you just dig into the weeds there for me?
Yeah, sure, man. Look, I mean, the reason they're looking to brines, as you can already guess, is that their technology is specifically, adapted or has been developed for brine projects. In other words, the technologies I'm talking about, processing technologies, are not for hard rock. They're specifically for brines. So hence, they kind of have been already looking at just at brines to start with, and then of course they start picking the various projects, looking at their, at their cost structure, looking at the jurisdiction they're located in, and so forth. So I would say the first, the first reason that they came to us was that they were focused on brines, and the second thing, if you compare, if you look into brines, you would probably go into either Chile and Argentina in the worst case scenario, maybe Nevada in the U.S., but they don't want to be in the U.S., so they were looking at Chile and Argentina. Chile, permitting wise, is quite a challenging environment, so they kind of focused on Argentina. In Argentina, if you look at Argentina today, there are only probably 2 maybe advanced projects. We're probably the most advanced in terms of completion of the feasibility. There's nobody else besides obviously like Lithium Americas, which is already in construction. Nobody else has actually completed the feasibility study or gotten an EIA and so forth. So that kind of predetermined their approach, or their choice, I should say. And going forward, again, just going back actually to your question, and the work that they have to do, though, in terms of actually seeing whether our brine will work with their process, has already been completed. In other words, we've already shipped our brine to them. They have their own pilot plants in their respective countries. They've run it through it. So this is not something that we will be doing going forward. They've already done, obviously on a smaller scale. I mean, they didn't produce tons of material, but they've already run our brine through their processing plants, and they have produced high purity battery grade materials. That's why they're interested. That's why, we continue this discussion, obviously, with them. We're at the point where we're discussing terms at this stage.
Right. So that is, and again, it's just help people, because it is quite technical, kind of like uranium. It's a very technical commodity. You need to have a team who know what they're doing, how to solve problems technically. It's not like sort of taking stuff out of the ground and sticking it through a ball mill or something. So the reason that these guys are coming in to the scale that they are with you is that they can't do some sort of offtake and go, right, I'll take a bit of brine from you and a bit of brine from the next guy and a bit of it's got to be, they're all in, because they've had to engineer their side of the process to your specific brine. Is that how it works?
No, that's not necessarily how it works. It's just when they found our project, when they did their due diligence, as part of that due diligence, we shipped our brine to their plants, and they ran it through it, and it worked quite well. So they don't have any issues about our brine being the appropriate brine for their plants. So in other words, they don't have to worry about that part. I'm not obviously sure about the other brines from other brine projects being shipped to them, or being tested, etc. So that's a different question. I have no answer to that. I don't know. But they've done that with ours, and it has worked. So for them to come in and actually build this project, obviously, is a lot easier now, because they understand our brine chemistry quite well, and they don't see any technical issues. In other words, they see that this brine will work perfectly well with their technology. So that's how it works. They did not adapt their technology or their processing approach to our brine. We sent our brine, and they just ran it through without any kind of twist to it, and it worked quite well.
Okay, understood. So why don't people like this just buy in the open market on spot?
That's a very good question. I mean, one of these groups has been buying in the open market. So this is a relatively new decision for them to get involved down upstream. They want to basically have foothold in production, in a production facility, I should say, in a production asset. The other group is not a producer, is not a user, but they want to be a large player in the lithium sector in general, and specifically on the production side. So these are, I would say, strategic decisions on the part of these two large players. And the third one too, actually, they basically want to be in production. They don't want to just be buying. I mean, 2 out of 3 are not even end users of this product. So it's a different strategy altogether. They believe that long term, this is going to be one of the major industries, obviously, in the EV and other sectors. So they want to become a significant producer of lithium in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, and one final one, just on the state of the market. Obviously, it's been a fairly quiet year for lithium, apart from a little burst of energy from Tesla and Piedmont recently. But people are starting to notice lithium. We're getting a lot more requests into interview lithium companies. A lot of lithium companies are approaching us and want to come on the show, which is all good stuff. But is it still a little bit early?
Look, I mean, probably if you want to take a little bit of early, first mover risk, it's probably not too early, meaning that, we've seen some movement, as you said, in the market this year already. Stock prices have inched up as well, Millennial and some other lithium stocks as well. So we see some kind of a movement. Another very important indicator is, of course, the fact that the lithium carbonate price itself has gone up a little bit, not significantly, but by about 5-7%. EV picture is intact. The trend is still there. Actually, we're going to see even more incentive programs being implemented and introduced throughout the world. So those things are all there. But in terms of actual sustainable upward trend in the lithium price, I think it's a little bit early. I think it will take probably 6 to 8 months before we can see some kind of a sustainable upward trend in terms of the market's ability to actually absorb all this excess supply that is still out there, especially coming from the hard rock or from the from pegmatite segment as well. So that will take some time, but I think there's definitely some very positive signs coming out of China, at least. We've got a partner, and a large investor in the company that actually is a large user of lithium batteries in China. So we get kind of a first-hand information from them as well, and it looks like the situation is getting better. I wouldn't say again it's going to rise dramatically in the next few months, but definitely it looks like we're bottoming out at this point.
So retail, if you're looking for leverage, now's the time. Do you think 2021 you'll see some more significant movement?
I think so. I think we'll probably turn the corner come first quarter, definitely second quarter, because again, I mean, I'm also kind of connecting this with the situation with COVID as the restrictions and lockdowns are lifted. People will go back to buy cars, and if last few months have been any indication of things to come, we'll see that they will be going for EVs. So I think that we will come back. I don't obviously know at what pace the whole market will come back, but it will be EVs taking over fossil fuel cars in the next even in the next few months. So I think that will be another boost to all these potential investors. I'm talking about large investors, of course, but I think the retail investors can obviously take advantage of that situation if they position themselves in the next few months as well, maybe between now and first quarter next year. Again, it's a little bit different from the last run in lithium. The last time, basically, you could throw money at anything that had lithium in the name of the company or the project, and you would do well. I think this is going to be a little bit different. People are going to be a lot more, picky about what they invest in, and they should be. They will be looking at the fundamentals of the project. They will be looking at the stage at which they are, because we're still looking at this situation, Matt, where most advanced low-cost structure projects have a chance, whereas a lot of other projects will still be languishing for quite a while. In other words, there's always what we call the Damocles sword over everyone's head from hard rock producers in Australia. So we have to take that into consideration all the time. So there's an invisible ceiling. Well, right now it's quite visible, but it's always there. So I think investors, both large and small, they got to be a little bit more selective in what they choose to invest in.
Okay. Farhad, thanks so much. I thought I was only going to speak to you for 5 minutes about your press release, but sounds like there's a lot going on, and perhaps we should stay in touch and see how this financing goes and what you actually end up agreeing. Fascinating.
For sure.
Give us a
Thanks
call.
a lot, Matt. We will. Take care.